For today's video, we are back on Tier Maker. Yesterday, I did ranking the number 2 overall draft picks, and you guys really seemed to enjoy that video and wanted me to make it into a series, so I think I'm going to do all the draft picks all the way up until 10, and then finish off the series with the number 1 overall pick. So hopefully, that is something you guys are looking forward to, and I also added a category. I added Superstar because before, it just went from top-line contributor right up until Hall of Fame talent, and I definitely think there is a pretty significant gap between the two. So starting off with the 2000 number 3 overall draft pick, Marian Gaborik, and I think I'm definitely going to put him as a top line contributor. He's definitely not a guy who I would ever really consider was a superstar. Had some very good years point wise with the New York Rangers. He's won a Stanley Cup with the Los Angeles Kings, and just overall had a very solid career and was definitely worth that number 3 pick in my opinion, but I wouldn't call him a superstar caliber player or not even close to a Hall of Fame talent. So I think top line contributor is definitely a good spot for him. And then we have Alexander Svitov, who is a number 3 pick in 2001. Oh wait, wrong spot. He's a flat out bust. He only played 179 career NHL games before playing the majority of his professional career over in the KHL, and he's really just one of those picks that didn't work out. And then we have Jay Bouwmeester. And for Jay Bouwmeester, I think I'm going to put him as a top line contributor as well. He's been a very good defenseman basically for his entire career. I would say his prime was definitely in his later years with St. Louis and then into his Calgary career, because for them, he was a very good defenseman, a top 2 guy. And again, I wouldn't call him a superstar or Hall of Fame talent, but definitely worth the pick and 100% a top line contributor in my opinion. Moving on now, we have Nathan Horton, and I'm definitely going to put him at good, but not worth the pick. He's a guy who's kind of been up and down, but had his best years with the Boston Bruins from the 2010 season up until the 2013 season, and Nathan Horton hasn't played a game since the 2013-2014 season. He's just been riddled with injury, but again, he definitely has had some very good seasons in the NHL. His career high in points is 62. He had that in back-to-back years with the Florida Panthers, the 2006-7 season and the 2007-8 season. Nathan Horton, a solid player, but I don't really think he's worth that number 3 overall pick. Moving on to Jack Johnson. Now this is a tough one for me, because Jack Johnson definitely had some really good years for the Columbus Blue Jackets, but I wouldn't really say he was worth the number 3 overall pick, because I wouldn't really say his career has been on par with the likes of, Marian Gaborik and Jay Bouwmeester, and obviously now Jack Johnson, a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and not really in a prominent role for them, so I'm definitely going to put him there. And I think I'm going to put Radim Vrbata there as well. He's a guy who had a lengthy career and definitely had a lot of good years. His years with Arizona were very solid. He bounced around the league a lot, but wherever he went, he was definitely a solid offensive contributor. But again, he's definitely not a player I would put up here with the likes of these guys. So I definitely think he's been a good player and was a good player for his career, but definitely not worth that number 3 overall pick. And Jonathan Toews, he is a Hall of Fame talent in my opinion. Whether you say he's overrated or not, I still think he will be in the Hall of Fame when his career comes to an end. Multiple Stanley Cups with the Chicago Blackhawks was a massive reason why that team was able to be so dominant over the course of them winning those 3 Stanley Cups. And while yes, a lot of people do think he's overrated, you can't deny how important he is to the Chicago team, and he just had a career high in points this past season. Jonathan Toews still has a lot left to give, and in my opinion already, he is a Hall of Fame talent. Moving on to Kyle Turris. Kyle Turris, I'm also going to put at good, but not worth the pick. Had some really good years with the Ottawa Senators, same with the Arizona Coyotes, but at the time it was the Phoenix Coyotes, and now he's a member of the Nashville Predators and kind of regarded as just a bad contract. And that kind of sucks for Kyle Turris, because it's not like he's old, like he's in his early 30s, and I definitely think in the right situation he can still be a solid player, but that contract is definitely kind of holding him down, and why a lot of people look at him as not a very good player anymore. Zack Bogosian, man, this is kind of tough, because Zack Bogosian, I can't really put him down there with Alexander Svitov, because he is still playing in the NHL, and Zack Bogosian is another guy who definitely has had some solid years. So for that reason, I think I'm going to put him at good, but not worth the pick. He's a guy who's currently a member of the Buffalo Sabres, and like Kyle Turris, he's kind of looked at as a guy who's just an awful contract at this point, but he is usually in the lineup for Buffalo, and he's a physical guy who can definitely bring some veteran leadership to that young blue line. So I guess they do do like having him around, but probably not at the cap hit that he's making right now. Matt Duchene, 100% is a top line contributor in my opinion. Just signed that massive contract with the Nashville Predators this summer. We're going to have to see how that plays out, but he just had a career year with the Ottawa Senators and then traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Was very good for them in the playoffs as well. And Matt Duchene is an up and down guy, very streaky, but you can't deny that he hasn't been a top line contributor for the majority of his career. He was usually the first line center in Colorado before Nathan MacKinnon came around. Obviously his time there came to an abrupt end, and Joe Sakic and him didn't really leave each other on the greatest terms, but Matt Duchene definitely a very good NHL player. Moving on now to Erik Gudbranson, and I feel like I have to put him in flat out bust because Zack Bogosian definitely has had good offensive seasons and two-way years. Erik Gudbranson, not so much. I feel like at this point he is just another bad contract out there. He was lingering over Vancouver for so long. They wanted to get rid of him, and they were finally able to. He's now Pittsburgh's problem, but he's definitely not as big as a bust as Svitov was because Gudbranson is actually still playing in the NHL, but is most likely just going to be a bottom pairing guy for the next couple of years for Pittsburgh unless they are able to move on from him or something like that. And now we have Jonathan Huberdeau, and he's the first player I'm going to put in the superstar category because in my opinion this past season he really broke out and became a superstar. He had 92 points and it was definitely an overlooked year for him, and he plays in the shadow of Alexander Barkov, and even Barkov doesn't get enough love because they play for the Florida Panthers. But in my opinion, Jonathan Huberdeau last year solidified himself as a superstar in the NHL, and I only think he's going to get better. So Jonathan Huberdeau, definitely an amazing player and was 100% worth that pick. A little bit of a late bloomer, but still it's better for them to come into their own and become a superstar a little bit late than to never really become that player that they were supposed to be when drafted. So Jonathan Huberdeau, definitely a very good player for the Florida Panthers. And now we have Alex Galchenyuk. I'm going to say this one's really difficult for me because he had a 30-goal year. Yeah, I feel like he's kind of a level above these guys, but I don't really know because this year with Pittsburgh is definitely going to tell a lot for him. I'm going to put him as a top line contributor just because, yes, he has had a 30-goal season and was pretty solid when he actually was on the ice last year for Arizona, but I definitely think he's capable of having a massive breakout season in Pittsburgh because of the talent that is going to be around him, and just, hopefully he gets on a good line, maybe with Crosby or Malkin, and they get some chemistry, because if that happens, he definitely could have a breakout year and be like a 75-point scorer, and if he does that, he's definitely up here with the likes of these guys. So for Galchenyuk, I'm kind of basing it off projection and potential right now and not off what he's done so far, but again, I just can't really put him in a row with the likes of these guys, not throwing any shade at them, but I think Galchenyuk is a level above them. Jonathan Drouin, oh man, this is another difficult one because he's a guy who probably hasn't been worth that number 3 overall pick. He was drafted by the Tampa Bay Lightning, traded to the Montreal Canadiens from Mikhail Sergachev, and his time in Montreal has kind of just been up and down so far, but he had a good year this past season, and yes, he technically was on their top line. So I feel like he's another guy I'm going to kind of base it off projection and potential as well, and a little bit of what he's done so far, and put him up here as a top line contributor. Next up we have Leon Draisaitl. He is a superstar in my opinion, and definitely if he has another couple of years like he did this past season and Edmonton has some team success over his and McDavid's career, he definitely could be up here as a Hall of Fame talent, but for right now I think I'm going to put him at a superstar level. Dylan Strome, I'm going to put him as a top line contributor strictly based off of what we saw from him the second half of the season with the Chicago Blackhawks. He was over a point per game for them. He was amazing, had a breakout season, and I definitely think next year he is a guy who could put up like 65 to 70 points, and if he's on the line with DeBrincat and they both stay healthy, they definitely could do some very amazing things. So, before this season, he'd probably be like down kind of here, but he really revitalized his career after the trade to the Blackhawks, and I'm a big fan of what he was able to do, and I'm happy for him because you never like to see players come in and, be regarded as a bust, but Dylan Strome definitely shedded that label in the second half of the year with the Chicago Blackhawks. Pierre-Luc Dubois is another guy I'm going to put up here as a top line contributor, has had a very good first 2 seasons in the NHL with Columbus, and now he's probably going to be their franchise centerpiece in terms of forwards. Heading into next season, he's going to be relied on to put up a lot of the points and produce a lot of the offense, and I think that could either be a really good thing for him or a really bad thing, and maybe the pressure gets to him and his point total drops, but you never know. He could have a breakout season and become like maybe around a point per game player because he is now the number 1 guy there, and I really think Pierre-Luc Dubois is a guy who could potentially move up there. but for right now, I think I'm going to put him as a top-line contributor. And Jesperi Kotkaniemi, definitely too soon to judge. Just had a really solid rookie season, but again, we don't really have anything more to go off of. Amir Heiskanen, I kind of want to put here because, yes, he's another guy who also just had one season in the NHL, but he definitely, probably after next year, will be up around here. He's that good. But for right now, I think I'm going to put him at too soon to judge because, again, it was just one season, and we can't really base everything off of that. So again, I'm going to kind of look over this, see if I want to make any changes, and I'll be right back to let you guys know. So I think the one change I'm going to make is moving Zack Bogosian down to flat O bust, because I feel like these four still were actually like solid players and actually good, and I wouldn't really consider Zack Bogosian was ever like good. Yes, he had solid offensive years, but just hasn't really been a good all-around defenseman on a consistent basis, in my opinion. And I like Zack Bogosian a lot. You know, he's definitely a veteran guy who, like I said, is playing a decent role for the Buffalo Sabres now, but I just can't justify, when I really think about it, putting him up here with the likes of these guys. But I think that is going to wrap it up. I think this is what I'm going to go with. Like I said at the end of last episode, if you guys want to do this as well, I will link it down below in the description, and you guys can take a screenshot of it, take a picture of it, and then go down, click the link in the description, follow me on Twitter, and tweet me a picture of what yours could look like, and then we can talk about it on Twitter if you'd like. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. I'll probably upload something different tomorrow, and then the following day get back at this series with the number 4 picks, because I don't want to make it repetitive and just post them one day after the other. But I really hope you guys are enjoying these videos. I'm definitely enjoying making them, and if you did, make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.